KVI Want to Know Weekends. Time for another round of Happy Hour Radio with Christopher Chan.
All right, happy Saturday night. Hope you're at the Holiday Wine Fest and doing some fun things. Perhaps you enjoyed Chocolate Fest today and Cowabunga and the Auto Show. Man, this is a busy weekend, but I'm here to talk about some cool topics, and the topic is called terroir. As a sommelier, we talk about minerality and the sense of minerality, and it's quite a debate these days because obviously through science we can find that a grapevine synthesizes nutrients from the earth and from water, but it cleanses them. There's really no evidence that this minerality actually has a form inside the wine. It's just this sense, and it's really interesting because we talk about chalk, we talk about slate, we talk about gravel, we talk about schist, we talk about organic and forest floor notes. And I have someone online who's just started a very exciting biology kind of startup. It's called Biome Makers, and his name is Adrian Ferrero. He's the CEO, and he's actually a Spaniard, so he has a bit of an accent. But Adrian Ferrero, hey, welcome to Happy Hour.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here.
Fantastic. So let's talk about your company that you started. Tell me about Biome Makers.
So Biome Makers is a smart microbial discovery startup based in San Francisco. And in essence, what we do is we use genetics to disclosure the whole list or the whole profile of microbes that are living or are in an environmental sample. And then we use computing technologies to process that information and make a meaning out of this list of bacteria and fungal species. And we apply this technology specifically for wine industry, and our technology is called WineSeek. That's what we do.
Very interesting. So let's talk about soil and rocks and microbes and bacteria. So when we think about the dirt in my backyard, there's some small pebbles, and then there's a bunch of black stuff, which I call dirt. Now, you're telling me, is that actually a living product? Is that a living form, and those microbes are there? Or are there microbes as well on pieces of rock?
Well, I can say that microbes are all around, so you can find them everywhere. But when we talk about the winemaking, or specifically about wine, and people try to understand what's the impact, the influence of the terroir, so we always think on how the terroir is reflected in the grape flavors. So that somehow is real, is happening, but there is something that we don't see, that it's there. Especially if we think about wine, how long it has been among us. So the fermentation that is produced by fungal species called yeasts, so those species are living in the vineyard naturally. And whenever you crush the grape juice has a lot of sugar, a lot of nutrients that these yeasts take for the digestion, and they produce alcohol, and they make the fermentation and then turn the juice into the wine. So trying to explain the terroir based from a different point of view, which is the microbes that interact in this is completely new and fascinating.
Quite so. So how many microbes are there in a square inch of soil, would you say?
When we talk about cells, we are talking about billions of cells. When we talk about species, we're talking about something between, in average, in a vineyard, we find something between 800 and 1,300 different species of microbes.
Wow. And you started tracking the DNA, the genetic profile of all these microbes, so you have a database listing these different species of microbes?
Yeah, today we have processed around 3,000 samples coming from 18 different countries. So we are building the first biomap for wine regions, which is very exciting because then you can understand better how which species are in certain areas that are not in other areas, and then make some kind of understanding how this can impact the final flavoral profile of a wine.
Very interesting. So, would you say that a bottle of wine also has microbes living in it, or would the alcohol destroy the living organisms?
Well, in fact, we have already tested some bottles of wine and we find some species. It's true that the environment is so extreme that even microbes have really hard times to survive, but there are some bacteria that still remain there. And that's something that you see in the moment you open a bottle of wine and then you let the oxygen to enter. So something start to happen into the wine. And there are some microorganisms, especially bacteria at that stage, that impact the evolution of the wine once you open the bottle of wine. So yes.
Interesting. So, like acetobacter, something that eats alcohol and turns it into vinegar, that's actually a microbe?
Yes, that is a bacteria.
Wow. Okay. Speaking with Adrian Ferraro, who's the CEO of Biome Makers. It's a company that studies soil and looks to map the genomes of different microbes that live in soils. And you say you've mapped soil samples or microbes from 18 different countries. That includes America, I would assume.
Yeah, well, and not just when we say America or the States, we're talking about mainly California and the different areas in California, but also Washington State and Oregon, and when we have some samples also from the area of Chicago and New York.
Wow. Okay. New York, too. That's pretty cool. So tell me, if people want more information, is there a website that people can learn more? Especially, we have a lot of winemakers that listen to the show, and I'm sure they'd be kind of curious, as well as vignerons and vineyard workers.
Yeah, sure. People can register for free in our website, which is called wineseek.com. Okay, you can look anywhere in any surfer, and you will find it. And create an account and access to all the knowledge that we have open for everybody. It's called the Wiki Biome. Okay, we have information about all the grape varieties. We have information about all kind of diseases affecting the vineyard, which are related to microbes, and we have information about all the microbes that impact anyway the winemaking. And we're talking about 2,800 different species that impact either the health of the plants in the vineyard or the fermentation process.
Interesting. So that's wine seek, like sequence, SEQ, wineseq.com. And that's a pretty clever name because I think you're talking about the DNA sequencing of the microbes. Now, do these microbes have names? Do you have a special name if you discover one that no one's found before? And do you get to name them like a star or something?
Yeah, you can imagine that this technology has been applied for microbial discovery not long time ago. So the knowledge that we are gathering is very valuable, and even if we see the DNA of the species, there are not references to name them. So we are accumulating this kind of data. But yes, the ones that we can name, that are what I mentioned before, 800, 100,000 per soil sample, yeah, there are very cool species there. And some of them can impact a lot in flavors, because when we talk about the terroir, as we were talking before, the minerality, which is very hard to explain even for sommeliers, isn't it?
It is, because we all have different taste buds and different mouthfeel, different pH. So acidity sometimes seems high, though it might not be that high. And we try to find a common language. And I think the Master Sommeliers, the Guild of Master Sommeliers or Court of Master Sommeliers, helps us fine-tune our vernacular so we can all sort of speak the same language. Now, how many scientists do you have working for Biome Makers?
So right now our team is composed by 20 people, and 40% of the members are PhD level in genetics, microbiology, agriculture science, and also software development and bioinformatics. So
wow.
Yeah, we have many scientists.
That's pretty exciting. So you probably have some great technology as well, I'm sure. We're going to take a little break here, and when we come back, I wanted you to help me understand one of the particular microbes that Biome Makers has identified, and what sort of flavors that particular microbe can offer or influence in a wine, and in a good way, or maybe there's something there's a naughty microbe out there, a bad microbe. Speaking with Adrian Ferrero, who is the CEO of Biome Makers, and we're talking about terroir, going to the DNA of the microbes in the soil. So stick around. We'll be right back on Happy Hour Radio.
Start your day the right way. John Carlson, live and local, 6 to 10 a.m. Talk Radio 570, KVI. You're in the know with KVI Want to Know Weekends. Here's more Happy Hour Radio with Christopher Chan.
All right. Hey, folks, welcome back. It's time for our fourth and final segment, and we're digging into terroir. Diving into the soil under a microscope with some scientists, some microbiologists, and learning what really affects the flavor, what terroir is in terms of the living matter. I've got Adrian Ferrero, who's the CEO of Biome Makers out of San Francisco. They've scanned, or they've traveled to 18 different countries and taken soil samples, and apparently there's 800 to 1,000 different microbes in a little piece of earth with, thousands of different DNA sequences. So, Adrian, tell me, is there one particular microbe that or bacteria that can change the way a wine tastes that you found?
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, we find many of them. The reality is that we don't know much about all of them. But for those that we know, we really like, and it's very trendy to talk about non-Saccharomyces yeast, and those are species that you find in vineyard soil quite often. For instance, there is one non-Saccharomyces which is Torula spora dubreki, and this yeast produce kind of tropical fruit flavors. So if you take the byproduct, which is a molecule, and you concentrate it, just a drop of this molecule, if you release it in a swimming pool, Olympic swimming pool, you will feel the flavor of this tropical fruit. It's more linked to passion fruit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, wow. That's a strong little microbe, and I'm concerned. That sounds like microbial warfare to an extent. An Olympic-sized swimming pool and one drop, huh? Interesting. Well, your website is wineseq.com, and you just started this company a year ago. Is that right?
Actually, May 2015. That's when we start developing all the technology, the application of this medical-grade technology into the agriculture field, and specifically to understand the microbes in the wine industry. That's our background.
Fantastic. Well, I really enjoyed learning about this. As a sommelier, we talk about terroir. We typically talk about organic and inorganic. And, of course, inorganic are stones and chalk and clay and all that. But the organic has always been a little different for us to identify, whether it's fall leaves or mushrooms or potting soil, things like that. You've opened up a little Pandora's box of different things to understand here, but I appreciate you sharing this with me, Adrian Ferrero. Thanks so much for joining us on Happy Hour Radio.
Okay, it was a pleasure. I'm really happy to share all our findings with the community.
Fantastic. Well, I'll be asking questions about some Washington winemakers and see if they've had their soil under the microscope. So take care. We'll look forward to seeing you here sometime.
Thank you very much. Good day.
All right, that's Adrian Ferrero, who's the CEO of Biome Makers, which for all you winemakers and vignerons out there, I bet you probably want to know what's in your soil. And there's, of course, we can always take the mineral analysis, whether it's potassium or nitrogen or carbon and things like that. But he's talking about the living things that are there and how they can affect the flavors of wine.